Hello, everyone. A very, very good evening to all the viewers, all the subscribers, and anyone else who's tuned in today to watch the first segment of Witch Talks. Now, why did we start this segment? Uh, and this is specifically for women in public life. Why did we start it? Because women in public life are certainly viewed as an anomaly. They are viewed as being very different. And of course, if you had gone back a few centuries, they would have been persecuted or burnt alive and called witches. So, talking about the injustice, what has happened to women in the past, and even now, the sort of uh, perceptions that exist about women in public life. We want to cover stories about women who are out there and making a difference in so many different ways, whether it is through politics, whether it is through show social work, or anything that they do which is completely different from what society expects from women and their role in society. And for the very first episode, I have with me Pallavi Nayak of Sarvodaya Sangam. Welcome, Pallavi, to the segment.
Hello, happy to be here.
So, Pallavi is someone, she belongs to an organization known as Sangam, which works extensively with political workers and also in honing leadership amongst political workers from the grassroots level and upwards. They are an organization that does very interesting work. So, stemming from that, Pallavi, you come from the corporate sector, uh, is what I've heard, and you had quite the journey and into politics. So, can you speak a little bit about what has your journey been like, and what has been your experience so far in this journey?
Yes, you're right. I'm from the corporate sector and from a very urban city, Mumbai. Uh, you know, moving to politics was I don't have any family member in politics. My grandfather was a freedom fighter at one point, but that wouldn't one wouldn't consider that as politics. It was his life's purpose. But clearly not everybody. It's a regular urban family situation. We were asked to study and do good work. I worked in the field of advertising and design as a strategist for 20 years. But somewhere in the back of the mind, I wanted to kind of move into politics. And move into politics as in do something for the country in some fashion. And I always believed to be it's better to be part of the system instead of working from outside. And for me, system was this political system where you either there was mainly there was electoral politics, right? That's what one had seen as politics. um, was I ready for it? No, but I guess there was this very urgent situation in my head that happened, which was the 2019 elections, where I was clearly jolted out of this very naive belief that that the country would vote out a certain power who I thought was probably a little dangerous for this country, and then realized probably I don't even know the country, and then realized saying, you know there's no point in sitting behind computers and doing it's better to jump into it. And I had no plans to actually jump into it because work was going quite good, quite fine. But then I did chance upon somebody who I work with now, and a team which is so wonderful as well. That I decided that the minute I met them, I kind of quit my job, and then it's been almost 3.5 years that I'm in this field now, and I pretty much am very happy with that decision, and that is what got me to politics. And very after understanding a little bit of politics, I realized that electoral politics is not the only type of politics. It's like filmmaking, right? You need an entire crew to do it, and sometimes the producer and the director, who you never get to see, actually do some interesting work. And I started enjoying, so the entire side, which is organizational politics, which is hidden to the world, is where I've started enjoying my work. And I've joined this, like you rightly said, a collective, rather we call it a movement, called as Sangam, and it's a movement to develop leadership and politics, for India to move towards the constitution and the humanity to move towards Sarvodaya. So these are some, like more people's politics. That's where we hope that the country will go towards and politics will go towards. So that's what we are working towards, and we are like a motley crew of some 15 people, 15, 16 people, and we are here. That's how.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. So, stemming from what you've shared about being in the corporate world, I wanted to ask you. So, there has been a lot of talk about the corporatization of politics, and certainly the role of strategists and people, professionals coming into politics has certainly increased in the last decade or so. So, how do you view this corporatization of politics, and where is the balance? So, could you shed some light on this? Uh, how is politics different? How is the corporate world different? And what is the change you're seeing and
Yeah.
would like to see?
Yeah, interesting. So, strangely enough, when I joined politics, I had no intention, or rather, I never thought that politics was broken, right? And politics needed something from outside to change it, right? I was rather very excited to learn what politics was and the ways of politics, the approaches of politics, which very unconsciously also seemed, even from a distance, seemed very very different than what corporate world was. Rather, there were many things that I saw broken in the corporate sector that I thought in politics was going fairly well, right? One is just diversity itself, right? Was
Hmm.
not so much with gender, but still diversity, in general was so much more working so much more better. And you could see that a lot of politics was about going to the people, which in the corporate sector probably is broken right now, right? It's very much sitting
Hmm.
in your offices behind laptops, kind of work. Both in both sectors, amazing work happening, I agree to that. But I strangely never came, a lot of corporate people and professionals come into politics thinking that there is something missing and let's change it. I actually came in quite excited saying I want to move here. And I'm also now, I'm very assured that politics doesn't need professionals as much as politicians only, right? It needs more politicians, because I accept that maybe things like, things, punctuality, certain team structures, chasing a certain objective, a little more structured work might help politics. But I am definitely not going to advise the complete corporatization or professionalization, as they say, right? Because what do people mean when they say professionalize? It's not just being punctual, and they literally say that the professional structure, which is actually a very hierarchical structure, right? That the boss will decide and the juniors will do it. That kind of structure they also want in this thing, which is just the politics of control, right? Which is what some of us are
Yes.
fighting. So it is that. For example, it is run by constitution. Now try running a professional outfit or a company, corporate, through constitution. It is not going to happen. The constitutional values actually, in some ways, legally apply to a corporate office or business, but actually some of the lived values don't, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't actually feel that. I feel a lot of politics should be learned by professionals in some way. So that is what my take is. I might be wrong, but this is what I feel. Yeah.
And a very interesting point that you made, that if the constitution was applied in its letter and spirit to the corporate world, you would actually see a lot of move towards like unionization, and a greater consultation of the people rather than it being a top-down approach. So
Absolutely.
that's a very interesting point that you've made. Which brings me also now to the role of women in politics, which is something, women empowerment has become a buzzword for sure, for sure. But there is still rampant amount of, tokenism, and there's that very fixed idea in people's mind about what women can or should do in politics. So, how do you view the role of women in politics, and how can so basically why we are doing this is that can you share some takeaways? You've also worked with women leaders from the grassroots level, political workers. So, can you share some takeaways?
Sure. So the role of women in politics, I'm like, I don't know, आधा बैट मेरा है, मेरे को भी बैटिंग करना है. It's as simple as that. मतलब we just have to be there. Women have to get represented. 50% of the country should be represented. So that is the role I feel of women. But more than the role of women, it's I think the way women inclusion has been treated by politics is in many ways how it's been treated in every walk of life, where it comes from the term women empowerment, right? When you look at social justice, you don't talk about say a Dalit empowerment, you talk about social justice. But when it comes to women, you talk about women empowerment, which actually shows a lack. Fair, there was a time when probably 30 years ago, where it was needed women empowerment, because uh, there was so little that was actually given to women as far as education is concerned, or a place in society was concerned, right? Or the level of freedoms that were there, that probably women empowerment seemed like the right thing, right? Two things: the male empowerment never happened simultaneously, which was a lack. And the second thing, which is the main point, which the constitution allows us, which is gender justice, was not spoken about. So I prefer to speak more about gender justice going forward rather than women empowerment, because gender justice claims that it is my right to be there, right? It is not a generous gift given to me as an empowerment, or somebody trying to do a vocational training for me to upskill me and empower me, right? It and also
Yes.
okay, I also say this with, I am a privileged woman. I want to always put that disclaimer. I am a privileged woman as far as where I'm born, to whom I'm born, and probably the education that I've got, right? So there could be some women who are still seeking freedom itself, right? The basic freedom, right? But that also is ideal if you see it from the gender lens, where it is their right, right? Like it's almost legal that they get
Yes.
it, right? And that's where probably some of the Congress policies, which is right to education, right, and all the right based stuff,
Hmm.
is very fair pay, equal pay, also, which women got, or the reservation that happened, at panchayat. That is a very right based thing. Even that empowerment should be seen from a right based lens itself, is what I believe. And hence I believe in speaking more about gender justice going forward. And that's what I see it. Where the second part of your question, saying that what is the view of, what have I learned, and what are my takeaways from meeting those women. I personally am very very excited, because as much as you don't see, because women, at a very ground level, you see a lot of women, thanks to, of course, the 50% panchayat raj. But like in all walks of life, it's easy to get work done from women. But as they go move ahead into decision making powers, you start, all of them start disappearing right? And then you have this one example, right, or one cabinet minister, one prime minister, then they make that example, which is actually an exception. That exception is made into an example, but that's not true, right? So one thing is for sure, there are, as far as caliber is concerned, as far as their political acumen is concerned, right? And their ambition is concerned, ambition itself, I feel that there are very strong potential amongst women at the grassroots, right? What they probably lack is a political capital, right? And what is political
Yes.
capital? Which is actually two M's people speak about. I speak of the third M as well. So there's money muscle for sure, but the third is man, right? Now, ideally, we
Yes.
should get away from money muscle politics, right? Similarly,
Yes.
this whole, capture of politics by just one gender, right, is also something
Yes.
that we should. Right. So, sadly, these three things today define political capital, right? How do we
Hmm.
create an alternative capital which not only helps women, right, move ahead into decision making power and find their right place in the country's politics, but also while developing that political capital, offer that capital to also men and to the larger world, that this is an alternative way of doing, which is probably a little less control driven, a little more compassionate, right? A little more easy, so that you can bring in diversity, right? That is what
For sure.
the role is, what probably I'm taking out from the women that I'm meeting and the thoughts that come to my mind. That's where
Okay.
I hope this answers your
So
question.
there's this one quote that I read just today only, that it's not enough just to get the right to vote in elections, but the right to be an elected representative should be a fundamental right available to women. So, um, and there are a lot of, you know, stereotypes that are given to women. Now, when people also have a conversation about women in politics or in leadership roles in politics as elected representatives, there's a lot of stereotypes that come about. Like, हाँ क्योंकि औरत है तो उसको घर चलाना आता है, वो कम्युनिटी का देखभाल करना जानती है, things like that. There are a lot of uh, such things which are very stereotypical, and
Yes.
actually quite yeah, they don't look at औरतें compassionate होती हैं, they can take care of people and things like that. We never see those things when we are looking at male
Right.
leaders, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So there is that very clear dichotomy in what is the benchmark for women and what is the benchmark for men. So what are the things that you see
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
done differently?
Mm. So let me go back to why I feel, what is probably what why is the reason that these myths exist about women in politics, and in general. Okay, whenever I speak of politics, I feel it's there in the society in every walk of life, and hence it's there in politics, right? So the reason why, it is said probably is because patriarchy loves to either make a devi out of a woman, or make her into an kanya, or make her into a gulam. And all three are actually gulam roles only, right? Because the patriarchy puts the woman on a pedestal and then says, now you can't do anything fun. Now you can't have any vices. You have to be this model and this ideal, walking 2 feet above everybody, but in a way that no
Adarsh
access,
Nari.
no access to life is given to you, right? And that's what pedestal is. Devi. Kanya is like, sit there, giggle at my bad jokes, giggle at my silly jokes, and be this very young, nubile thing, never a threat to me kind of a thing. So that is the Kanya role which they allow, and they will give
Yeah.
you power. They will give you power because they feel that you'll be in their control, right? And the third is of course gulam itself, as in that's ideal. So all three are actually gulam roles only, but of course two of them are slightly salt and pepper dalke, like a master chef, Michelin star, presented kind of stuff. So those are the Michelin star gulams roles. So they prefer that, and because that is the role that is allowed for women. Whenever a pitch for women is done, right, what do they give women? They give women, say, in within reservation also it's 33%. Ideally it should be 50%, but 33% is given. Within that also, there are so few seats that women have to fight. For example, it's usually like a parda system in within parties as well. So there'll be a different organization for women, right? Or there
Hmm.
will be, a different stage for women, a different program for women. So then you give them a sliver and then you ask them to fight within that sliver, right?
Hmm.
So of course they have to, how will they find their place, right? So they have to do their pitch. So then they borrow from patriarchy and say that at least patriarchy feels that I'm compassionate, let me use that as the pitch. Because what is the in
Yes.
all of this, what is the takeout is that usually you communicate to the audience and then you actually tell the audience what the audience wants to hear to get the best result. Here, the takeout is the audience is the man, but the audience is not the man. The audience is the justice system. The audience is the constitution, right? So when you think the audience is the
Yes.
man, you will go with the pitch saying, okay, the audience is said that ठीक है तुम compassionate है, I'll believe that. So then I say I'm more compassionate. तुम less corrupt होएगा. Okay, then I'm less corrupt. Okay, fine, I'll take that. Right? So you
Mm,
make these
mm,
pitches
mm.
which you borrow the language, you borrow the branding of the patriarchy, and you say I'm that. Then what happens is you find one woman who's not compassionate, then they'll say, see, all women are not compassionate, why should we give power to them, see, it is not true that women are not compassionate. So I would rather walk in saying, do not give me all those great virtues, I do not have them. The reason why women should be there in frontline politics in decision making power is because we are representative politics, and we need to be represent. 50% of this country has to get represented. आधा हम है, आधा हमारा होना चाहिए. It's as simple as that. And this is the reason why I feel gender justice makes more sense than women empowerment, because our audience is the constitution and the justice system, right? To
Yes.
whom, and of course the people of this country who are part of the constitutional framework, who are our audience, and ask them to
Mm.
get us there. uh, is there a lack of preparedness for women to get there? Sure there is. Sure there
Of
is.
course.
There will be lack of preparedness, because if there's no access given thus far, there will be, right, some preparedness. But I believe after working with several women that they will catch up very very quickly, because there is hunger, ambition,
Yes.
and potential, very much an active potential which is there, so they will reach there. So this is what I feel.
I think somewhere from what I've heard from you that you know uh, this whole thing of us being half the population, and the constitution, by its very language and the way it's structured, it speaks about every citizen being an equal stakeholder in the country. So even the whole thing of jitni abadi utna hak, uh, that applies to women too. We are 50% of the entire population. So where do our needs get represented, and who represents them? Because there are certain issues which a woman would be very intimately aware of, that women suffer from, which a man, first of all, may not even know, and second, may not even relate to it as being a valid problem for us.
Yes.
Like, I could share an example that when we as women, when we are going around, there's such an acute lack of public sanitation, that we actually over the years have just attuned ourselves. We drink water and schedule our water intake accordingly and our bathroom breaks accordingly, so that we account for that lack in public whenever we go out. But that's something that's so us, right? It's an us problem.
Hmm.
But there are very few women who dare to talk about it
Yes.
as legislators.
Hmm.
So there's the whole host of issues like that, which it don't get represented because we don't have that sort of representation uh, for us.
I
Now,
agree with you.
before we come to the end, Pallavi, I also wanted to round up this conversation and ask you for what would you suggest to politicians, since you come from the corporate sector. What would be the best practices that can be included in
Hmm.
politics to
Hmm.
make it better? What would be a suggestion?
So I personally don't think that there is anything from the corporate sector that you need to get to politics. Personally, I don't feel that, but I will take
Hmm.
from what, and also I refrain from giving advices to people, but I will take from what you just said before this, right? The representation of women and why their voice should be included. One, because then you are also securing 50% of women and putting their voice on the table, okay, so that because every decision a politician takes, it will affect every walk of life. So in that sense, it will affect their life, so it's good to have their voice. But it's also good for say the other half of the country, who are the men, to get that feminist view, right? And what is this feminist view? Feminist view comes from years of subjugation, years of being oppressed, right? And that view is slightly different. Otherwise, I don't see that difference between men and women, right? So when we are
Yes.
again, when I say I don't see difference, matlab, I'm not saying that I want to be 130 kilos and punch somebody. That is not the equality I'm looking for. But equality in voice, equality in representation, equality in how the constitution works for me versus someone else. That is the equality we're
Or
looking at,
not,
right?
or even
So
something as simple as not being disregarded because you're a female.
yes,
That
exactly.
also happens a lot.
And it happens a lot because it happens the good the people who see women as less, they discriminate them. There are good men who feel very conscious in front of the world being around women, they also end up discriminating women, right? So it happens because of multiple reasons. Women themselves end up discriminating women because they have somewhere got patriarch they have how adopted the patriarchal mindset. And why saying
Internalized it. Yeah.
against the line औरत की दुश्मन होती है, because the jails are filled with men who have murdered men. So I refuse to take that line of औरत की दुश्मन होती है, which is also a patriarchal line. So that aside, I believe that there are many people who are yet to understand the feminist view. And why should they understand the feminist view? Because in an ideal society, it's best to have a holistic view, right? If imagine somebody only thinks with the right brain and left brain, you need a whole brain approach to stuff. And what the feminist view does is that it brings a whole brain approach to politics. And also it helps, for example, there are a lot of people who work on social justice realized that the feminist women are actually the biggest caste in the country. And the feminists realize that caste is actually a patriarchal problem. So these two
Yes.
things actually work very very together. So there are intersectionality between these issues and other issues of the society, and hence developing that feminist view is very very important. Now that word, for some reason, it ticks off people because it just feels like somebody's here to grab some men and they are male haters. Sorry, I love men. Okay. But the point is not about that. The word was given as feminist because you of course brand it and name it on the side of the oppressor, right? And that's about it. But gender justice again is actually the feminist, it's a feminist gift to the world, where it says that now that we have a voice and some of us have a voice, we want to speak for all genders and start looking at the gender problems which have started because of gender issues, rooted in gender issues, right? And that could affect a
Yeah.
man, it could affect somebody from the LGBTQ community, it could affect a woman, it could affect everyone, right? And that's why my submission in the end would be to start to politicians is that start developing that feminist view, which will need a lot of reading and spending a lot of time, and most importantly a very very open mind, right? Because it's a different
Yes.
way of looking at the world altogether, right? But then
Yes.
my submission to politicians would be to start developing that. Yeah, that's
Yes.
it.
And I think I'll add to your nasihat
Sure.
a little bit that since I also come from the corporate world, of course, but societal things also reflect in the corporate world. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's a problem. It's a societal problem. But women, the way that they are respected for their experience, their education in the corporate sector, for being in that space that they are, that would be a good practice to carry over to politics, and not to just view women as decoration. Because in my past 5 years in politics, my experience, I've seen that women tend to be treated as mere decoration in
So,
parties.
to that, no, I would say, because I've been in the corporate world for 20 years and I know certain organizations who use women as decorations to write the notes. Like it could be a senior woman, but if there is notes to be taken, they look at the woman, like take notes, as if लिखना सिर्फ उसे ही आता है ना, कितना सुंदर हैंडराइटिंग है इसका. But it's not that, right? So I see
Yeah,
that perfect. But then there are teams, and I urge women to go look for those teams. I work in a team which has a feminist view. I work with people who I believe, allow all the versions of me to be there, and actually, I have a voice, and so do other women, and I feel, seen in that sense. I would urge, and I believe in politics, there are spaces like this, and there will be some leaders like this, right? If not big spaces, there'll be some leaders like this. I personally feel, particularly because I also chose Congress, to join Congress, for the particular reason, is because I've seen the history. In the history of Congress, you can find one or two leaders or many leaders somewhere, probably being patriarchal, and many, you can see. But in general, as far as the policy is concerned, as far as their choice of leaders are concerned, and many other ways, and their way and their feminist view towards the policy making as well, I believe that it is primed to get more women in. Actually, it will be a shame, and I'm not surprised that with Nari Nyay literally means gender justice. I was so happy when I heard the five Nyais in which there was Nari Nyay, right? It is possible because there is a room for the feminist view within the party. So I would urge people to go and look for those. They are there. They are there. Look for those spaces for, and go and meet people who work with such teams, and people, right, across parties, huh?
absolutely.
Across parties they will be there. Yeah,
And I think one of the key takeaways from this 24 election has also been that women have come out as a key voter base
yeah,
across the country. So you
yeah,
see whether Congress's narrative was of course very inclusive of women, Nari Nyaya that you mentioned and things like that. But women, the importance that they have been accorded this time during the election, I have not
yes,
seen it in 2019. I have not seen it in 2014. I have not seen it before that also. So, as a person now, I'm sure you are as excited as I am that
yes.
going forward, the journey is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be interesting. You'll see more women. We will have to compete with more women, and which is also fair, because that's where, because when there are more of them, it's better for the movement, right?
Yes.
And also when it comes to women, to slowly we will see not to take women also for granted, that women will only give you vote for giving them gas, like, I mean, that is the biggest
Ah.
gas that politicians give, that will give you vote for gas, right? In the same way, when they say that women voted for a certain party because they were given free something, no, probably women were
Hmm.
also communal, and that's why they gave the party the vote, right? Because to expect women to be all good, and all simple, is
Hmm.
also very, very harmful. So I feel that, but it's an exciting time because a whole new world is opening for politics, and for people like, say,
Yes.
you, and who are interested to know more, and learn more and see a new world develop. It is a really, really good time. Of course, it comes with a lot of challenges also, but I believe,
It
you
does.
know I strongly believe after this election that our constitution will take care of us.
Yes, it will. Surely. Well, thank you so much, Pallavi, for having this conversation with us today. And really, really, really grateful to you for what you have shared. And I'm sure the people who would watch this video, wherever they might be, all over the country or wherever in the world, they would take this with them that anything is possible when a person from corporate sector can come into politics and they can make a difference. There's a lot that women are capable of, and it's challenging. I'm not saying it's a cakewalk. Pallavi also said the same. It has a lot of challenges, but surely it is worthwhile in the end that
Yes.
women and our voices get heard in the political process, and we become a part of uh, the polity of India. So
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
thank you so much for.
I'm happy to be the first witch on the program. Lost my hair. So that
Ye-
patriarchy doesn't have to take the effort to shave my hair and burn me to the stake. They did half their job. The last thing I would like to say
Yeah,
to women is that politics is and will be an extremely exciting career for women. And remember that it will be. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, yes, for sure. And
Thank you.
so, to all the viewers today who watched this segment, the very first of Which Talk under Democratic Dialogues, please do write in what you think about this segment, comment on the video, share it with people who you think would enjoy this conversation, and like, and not to forget, please do subscribe to this channel. We are we are wanting to reach 500 followers very soon. So thank you once again for tuning in, and thank you, Pallavi, for being with us.
Thank you, Dave. All the best. Bye bye.